Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a classic that really forces us to confront some pretty uncomfortable truths about human nature.
Mhm.
Like how incredibly thin is that line between, civilization and just utter chaos? What actually happens when all the rules we take for granted just disappear?
Exactly. And today's deep dive, well, it explores these very unsettling questions through a really powerful source, an insightful review and analysis of William Golding's iconic novel, The Lord of the Flies.
Ah, yes, a heavy hitter.
Definitely. It's kind of a journey into the heart of darkness, stripped of all pretense.
So, our goal today is basically to unpack the core ideas, the symbols which are so potent, and the lasting impact of this masterpiece. We've pulled out the most important nuggets, the key facts from the material to give you a concise but hopefully thorough understanding.
Sounds good.
Right. So, where should we begin? Where do we start digging?
Well, let's start with the basics, the foundation. We're talking about The Lord of the Flies by
Right.
William Golding, first published way back in 1954.
Okay, 1954. And it quickly became much more than just like a boy's adventure story gone wrong, didn't it? What makes it such a landmark?
It really is. It's categorized in a few ways. It's an allegorical novel, obviously, where things stand for deeper ideas.
Right.
It's dystopian fiction showing this grim, broken society. And it's definitely psychological fiction, digging deep into the characters' minds. It's all rolled into one.
Quite a mix.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. It got mixed reviews at first, but now it's absolutely seen as a modern classic. Golding even won the Nobel Prize for Literature in '83, partly because of it.
Wow, quite the turnaround.
Definitely. Not bad for a book about feral schoolboys.
So, for anyone who maybe hasn't read it or it's been a while, the premise itself is famously chilling.
Mhm.
What is it about this specific setup, these British schoolboys on this island that Golding uses so effectively?
That's the core of it, isn't it? The novel, it just dives right in. It's this unsettling exploration of what the source calls the thin veneer of civilization and how easily that shatters. You've got this group, British schoolboys, different ages, little kids up to early teens, stranded, deserted island, plane crash during some fictional nuclear war.
Right. The backdrop of war is important too.
Hugely important.
Right.
And their initial attempts at self-governance, they devolve pretty quickly into chaos, into violence. It really lays bare Golding's, let's say, rather bleak view of human nature.
It grips you fast.
Yeah.
Because initially, there is this flicker of hope, right? They try to replicate the society they left behind. They elect Ralph as a leader.
The conch shell.
Yeah, and they focus on the signal fire, that crucial link to rescue, to civilization.
Hmm.
It starts off surprisingly organized, almost.
Almost.
Yeah.
But that hope, it erodes fast. Tensions flare up, especially with Jack emerging. He's sort of the opposing force.
Right.
He prioritizes hunting, pleasure, immediate gratification, not the long-term goal of rescue. And he forms this rival group focused on power, on these primal instincts, and more boys drift his way.
And alongside this split, this growing division, there's that creeping fear of the beast.
Ah, the beast. Yes.
It's such a powerful element. Because, as the source points out, it becomes more than just a spooky story they tell each other. It's Golding saying the real monster isn't, out there in the jungle.
Exactly. It's inside.
It's the darkness within them, just waiting for the rules to break down. It's a properly chilling idea about us.
And what happens when those internal fears take over? Well, the group completely splinters, savagery dominates, and you get these tragic turning points.
Like Piggy.
Exactly. Piggy, he's the voice of reason, intellect, he's killed
Right.
violently. And Simon, who's this kind of quiet, spiritual, almost Christ-like figure,
Yeah, he figures it out, doesn't he? About the beast.
he does, and he's killed too. It's brutal. It shows how reason and innate goodness just get crushed when barbarism takes hold.
And the end. The climax is just Ralph running for his life, hunted by his former friends.
Mm-hmm. Full circle into savagery.
And then that rescue. The naval officers showing up. It's almost, well, it's deeply ironic, isn't it?
Oh, completely. It's not just relief. It's Golding's final punch. Because the civilized world rescuing them, it's embroiled in its own massive war, its own savagery.
Right. So the island wasn't the exception, it was the microcosm.
Precisely. It shatters any idea that this evil is just confined to the island. It's presented as a fundamental human flaw.
Okay, so these horrific events, this descent, it's obviously more than just plot. Golding's using it to say something much bigger. Let's unpack the allegory here.
Yes, absolutely. The central conflict, you could frame it as civilization versus savagery.
Mm.
And the boy's whole journey just illustrates how fragile those societal structures really are. They suppress our darker instincts, maybe, but they don't eliminate them.
And the symbols he uses are just so powerful. Like the signal fire. It's not just smoke, is it?
Not at all. It's hope. It's their connection back to the world, to rescue, to order, and notice when it gets neglected or goes out.
Yeah.
It directly mirrors their slide into savagery. When the fire's out, a part of their civilized selves is out too.
That's a great point. And then, of course, the Lord of the Flies itself, the pig's head on a stick.
Ugh. Yeah. Grotesque, isn't it?
Truly.
It's this physical manifestation of the evil, the chaos swirling around them, and more importantly, inside them. And the source reminds us, Lord of the Flies is a translation of Beelzebub.
A demon's name. Doesn't get much clearer than that.
Not really. It drives home that idea of inherent evil pretty forcefully. It's a visceral, unforgettable image.
And the characters themselves function as allegories, too, which makes the themes so stark. You got Ralph,
Order, leadership, democracy, sort of.
Rhett, and Jack,
Power, dictatorship, primal urges, savagery.
Biggie,
Intellect, reason, science. The fragility of it, maybe.
and Simon.
Spirituality, maybe innate goodness. Kind of a natural mystic figure.
Yeah. These aren't just boys. They're like big ideas walking around, battling it out. Which one do you think is the most, well, maybe the most disturbing allegorical element Golding puts in there?
Oh, that's tough. Maybe the beast, actually. Because it's not just Jack's savagery, it's this fear that grips everyone, even Ralph and Piggy at times. It forces you, the reader, to think about your own potential for that kind of irrational fear and maybe darkness.
Yeah, that's true. It implicates everyone.
They really enhance the philosophical questions the novel is asking.
So beyond the story and the big ideas, it's worth touching on how Golding tells this story, his writing style. Let's talk about that for a sec.
Oh, yeah.
It's described as really rich, symbolic, layered. He uses imagery and motifs so effectively to create this really haunting atmosphere. It sticks with you.
It absolutely does. And I think that haunting quality comes from how the novel sort of shifts between stark realism, like the practicalities of survival, and this almost allegorical fantasy.
Right. It feels grounded and mythical at the same time.
Exactly. So it works as this gripping survival tale, but also as this deep, kind of disturbing psychological experiment. What happens when the rules just vanish?
So looking back, critically speaking, how has the book held up? Our source highlights some clear strengths.
Yeah, definitely. It's praised for those deep allegorical layers we talked about. The character development is really vivid. You feel their descent.
You really do.
And its exploration of human nature, morality, leadership, society. It's just incredibly powerful and, frankly, still relevant.
Undeniably. But it's not universally loved without reservation, is it? There are criticisms.
Sure. And that's fair for any major work. Some readers find the violence pretty disturbing, maybe even excessive for them.
I can see that. It is brutal.
The lack of female characters is another point that's often raised, a valid critique in contemporary readings. And, well, that core pessimistic view of human nature, it just might not sit well with everyone. Some people find it too bleak.
It is a very bleak portrayal. Do you think Golding leaves any room for hope or potential for redemption, even implicitly?
Oh,
or is it just
fun.
that unyielding?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Golding's vision is undeniably bleak. That rescue at the end, it feels more like an interruption than a solution.
Yeah, the officer doesn't understand what he's seeing.
Not at all. It doesn't suggest humans have changed. It just stops these boys' particular descent for a moment. The pessimism feels pretty central to his whole argument. Civilization is fragile, it's learned, it's not our default state.
Despite those criticisms, though, the source still gives it a pretty high rating overall.
Yeah, a strong 4.5 out of 5 stars, which shows its enduring power, even with the difficult aspects.
So ultimately, The Lord of the Flies, it just remains this timeless, really disturbing reflection on how fragile civilization actually is. It really makes you wonder, faced with that kind of situation, how many of us would really hold on to the rules?
Indeed. It's like a mirror, isn't it?
Yeah.
Held up to all of us. Golding's bleak, maybe, but incredibly insightful portrayal of human nature just keeps provoking thought, keeps sparking debate. It challenges us to look inward.
At our own capacity for both order and, well, chaos.
Precisely.
Which leads us perfectly to a final thought, something for you to maybe mull over after this deep dive. If you were given absolute freedom, no rules, no consequences, what societal structures would you choose to keep? And which instincts, which parts of that beast do you think you'd find yourself battling?